morning, everybody. Welcome to Breakthrough Real Estate and Property Management's 52 weeks of training. Um, Really excited about today's training. As agents, one of the hardest things we encounter on a regular basis is home inspections. They can go wonderful, or they can go very, very awry, unfortunately. But there's no way of knowing. Pretty sure most buyers, when they make an offer on a property, they most people assume the best, right? Every once in a while you do get a fixer upper, in which case you're expecting a fixer upper. But what percentage of people would you say are truly buying what they hope is going to be a home in just great condition?
90% at least.
Yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10 people, right? And so when we go into inspections, we always hope for the best, right? And when we're dealing with buyers, most buyers don't really know much about the details of a home, what to expect or anything. And I know as an agent, one of the biggest things I face and encounter are trying to help buyers understand, what is normal, what is to be expected, and so today we're excited to have Steve Callahan with Canyon State. Thank you. Canyon State Property Management. I've only been using his services for 10 years now. Yeah. He's an awesome inspector. We've used, in the last 10 years, I've probably dealt with at least 100 different inspectors. And he's continued to prove himself to be one of the best. So we're fortunate to have him today. First things first, though, wanted to share a few announcements. Excited that we just passed 110 deals for the year, and we passed the 20 million mark. So we passed our good goal for the year. So congratulations, everybody. Breakthrough agents, if you're on, congratulations. Non-breakthrough agents, I'm very excited to share that we have some amazing things coming up for 2019. We are going to continue our 52 weeks of training, but next year we're going to try to offer at least one free continuing ed class per month. So if you keep track of our calendar, check in on a regular basis, you should be able to meet all your continuing ed needs for free by coming to attend classes here at Breakthrough. Number two, throughout the year, you're going to see different things for such as inspectors, home warranty people, estate planners, escrow officers, lenders, coming in and speaking on all different aspects of the business. And that's part of the training that we provide for our agents, but we want to extend the arm to all agents. To be honest, Breakthrough, we're a new brokerage, and I'm really, really excited as the owner, co-owner, but the designated broker, to get word out about everything that we provide. We have splits from 50-50 team structures all the way up to 100%. We have some of the best platform lead gen systems. You name it. We have some of the best things any agent could want. So we want to provide as much free value to as many of you out there so you can come in, take advantage of the free stuff, but then see a little bit more about what Breakthrough has, right? So that being said, we have, what's the other thing? Oh, Tuesday trainings. That's it. Tuesday nights. So many of us have full-time jobs, right? And it is so hard to break free during the day when most of these trainings are going on. I know many people have full-time jobs that want to make that leap eventually to be a full-time agent. And so we are going to start offering in January, Tuesday night training. And these are going to be here at the office. We're going to share them online as well. But these are the absolute basics. So these are going to be a 9-week repeated session of Real Estate 101. From number one, how do you get started in real estate? You got your license. Now what? Number two, we're going to go through all your contracts, how you write an offer, how you help a buyer, how you help buyers out, listings, running CMAs, getting to know the MLS, getting to know zip forms, the escrow process in general, the lending process in general. There are 9 key topics that we're going to make sure to offer on a revolving basis for all new agents, whether you're brand new in the business or you just want to catch up on maybe some new stuff, right? So we're going to offer all that for you. It's going to be every Tuesday night, starting at, I believe, 5:30, 6:30. 6:30. Yeah, for anybody that gets off work at 6 o'clock, we wanted to just give you a little bit of time to get here if need be, but hopefully most people will be able to get off around 5 or so.
Is that January 8th, Josh?
It's going to start, yes. Is that the...
The first Tuesday is New Year's Eve.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely not going to do it New Year's Eve. As much as I love real estate, I'm probably going to be the only one here.
Or New Year's.
There you go. So, yeah. So we're going to start January 8th then. Tuesday, January 8th, 6:30. Real Estate 101 here at the office. So, yeah, that's about it as far as the new training stuff. Breakthrough agents, if you haven't checked in with Charlotte yet, when is Thanksgiving? Is next Tuesday? I mean, next Thursday. So the ringing of the bell starts the following Wednesday, correct? So breakthrough agents and even non-breakthrough agents, if you would like to participate, Real Estate Wednesdays goes on between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it's every Wednesday in between. And it's where we, agents and anybody affiliated in the real estate industry, give back and we volunteer our time for the Salvation Army. Each Wednesday, keep an eye out at a supermarket near you. Chances are there will be real estate agents out front ringing bells, trying to raise as much money as we can for the Salvation Army. And Salvation Army is just it's a wonderful, wonderful cause. So come by. We're going to be at the Fry's Food and Drug off of 67th Avenue and Happy Valley. And what time does it go through?
Starts at 11. Or you mean as far as dates?
Well, it's the
Starts
Wednesday.
at 11 in the morning till 7 at night.
11 in the morning till 7 at night. So please come by, say hi. Please bring some change or some dollars for the Salvation Army. It's such a wonderful, wonderful cause. Yeah, I think that's about it. Unfortunately, our special guest is running a few minutes late today. So I had about 10 minutes worth of notes and things like that.
Well, but to go back to the Salvation Army, I think what's so wonderful about us helping such a worthy cause is that I can't tell you how many people stop by and as they give, share what Salvation Army has done. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the stories are amazing and the kids just absolutely love it. So we have candy canes and everything, but it's so cool to be able to help people out because the holidays, especially Christmas, are such a trying time.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year, our store raised a decent amount, but I think in the 4 Wednesdays last year, we, as a whole, just here in the Valley, we raised over $100,000, correct?
I'd have to go back, but I think so.
Yeah.
And so the goal obviously is to
Let's
go
beat it
above that.
this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it was originally started by those Callaways, which are a wonderful husband and wife team here in the Valley, have been staples in the industry for years. If you've been fortunate enough to work with them, they're a great, great couple. Nobody's. Hey, Steve. How's it going?
Say hi, Ian.
Oh, I didn't realize we actually, yeah, you can set that up to not share screen. Sorry about that. I guess I just forget. Steve, how are you? So, not sure I warned you, but yeah, you're going to be streaming live. The world.
On the spot.
No.
All right.
So get yourself set up. You
yeah.
want some water, coffee.
Perfect. All right, so I'll just continue talking just for another minute or two so he gets a moment to set up. Our office is in the Northwest Valley, and Steve will drive pretty much anywhere and everywhere you want him to because he is absolutely awesome. But I'm sure he really appreciates all you Southeast Valley agents because he does live out that direction.
Yeah, it's okay
So,
to live on the other side of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Steve, is it pretty much, is it you and your wife, right?
Yes. Wife runs the office and I do the inspections.
Yeah. So Anne will be the one that, if you ever give them a call, she's one of the nicest people in the world and always a happy voice on the phone. Give them a ring. Can you try to get that if you don't mind? You can make it so it doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, Lily, I was trying to do something. Lily, we're almost to your school. Lily, if you would only have like 2 minutes, that would be it.
Why is yours the main screen though? Now we're talking. Okay, now that. All right.
That's Josh.
It won't. So, all right. I guess anybody that comes in, please just mute your microphone if you don't mind, because I don't know how to do it. If somebody can write a notation or something, that'd be great.
All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Steve Callahan with Canyon State Property Inspection. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here.
You can sit down too if you want. So. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Callahan. Like Josh said, I'm with Canyon State Property Inspections. Really here to just give you guys, I'm not here to sell myself or sell anything. I'm just here to give you guys information on home inspectors, what home inspectors look for, why they look for things, why they're required, what they're required to look for, just add on themselves. There are things that they do add on themselves because they think just my basic information. In Arizona since 2002. Licensing became effective in 2003. Licensing in 2003. Done approximately, I'm working on 6,000 home inspections. Yeah, I started in 1994 though, so it's been a while.
So when you do your training and stuff, I mean, do you have to like go to class and stuff for this, or?
That's the thing with home inspectors. You only have to get licensed once. There's no requirement for training after that by the state of Arizona. Arizona just requires you to take your test, get your license. So much training to get your license. Nothing after that. No requirement after that. The things that you can get after that is join organizations like NACHI. There's a few organizations.
What are those acronyms, if you don't mind, really quick? Some of them.
ASHI is American Society of Home Inspectors, which I was a member of for a long time, and NACHI is just the national one. So there are some of them are better than others. Some ASHI is just well known because it's what Arizona based their inspections on to become licensed. So they use the standards by ASHI for that. But I don't agree that they're the best ones. There's ones that are out there that get way better trained. There's ones that are out there that they really get involved with the home inspector.
And a lot of their stuff's free. They'll just throw things in there. Yes, sir.
Are there accreditations with your profession?
There's a lot of accreditations, but the only thing is, like ASHI, you don't have to do 500 home inspections to become an ASHI member. So it's really not that much. And that's, if you're a decent home inspector, you can do that in 2 years. You get your license pretty quick. I mean, with ASHI. The only thing is with that is that it wasn't until I did probably about 1,200 home inspections that I realized I really didn't know a lot about home inspecting. And that's what I think about with most home inspectors, is that you really need to get a lot of inspections underneath your belt. Just kind of like being a real estate agent. You know, the more you do, the more you understand. In our business, though, it keeps evolving because there's always new changes and requirements for new construction. The years homes were built. If a home was built in 2012 by 1950, the code requirements are a lot different. Even though we're not supposed to talk about codes, we're supposed to do general building practice, standard building practice, which is basically another term for codes. It's still supposed to be built.
But it seems like you would still need to be aware of what that code is, because when
Yes.
you're looking, to say, like, for example, the GFI, did I say that right?
Yep.
Is up to standard or up to code or whatever it is.
Correct.
So it seems like, in some way, it's kind of like you doing continuing education.
Yes. Okay. And that's because they do change, and most of them change 2 to 4 years. See them constantly changing, and that's when you're dealing with, say, like for instance, in 2011, all the GFCIs in the garage, all the outlets in the garage, even your garage door opener has to be on a GFCI. So these changes, and that can be, if you don't know that, your GFCI trips and your garage door opener doesn't work, end up calling a garage door guy out because you don't know it's on a simple circuit with the button. So that's what the homeowner should really know during the inspection too.
Steve,
Yes.
does the state of Arizona require that you have a license?
Yes, you have to be licensed.
In the past, was that so?
Not before 2003. 2003 is when, and that's why I got my license in 2003, is because in law that we had to have it, and there's certain things that we have to meet. So let's see. So basically, and knowing you're a home inspector, you really want to know their license number for a couple of reasons. Like mine's 39079. The lower the number, the earlier they got their inspection. Some guys got their license in 2002, and their license number is going to be 38 something. So the higher the number, like right now we got guys in 7,000 something, and so they can give you an idea of how long they've been doing this. The only other thing is that license puts me back to 2003, but I've been doing inspections since 2004, so there wasn't licensing back then before that. So let's see. The other thing is with home inspectors, you want to know their career path. So what they did before they became a home inspector, were they an accountant? Were they framer, electrician, things like that? You kind of want to know their background a little bit. Otherwise, they're really getting their experience on homes by doing your home inspection. And
is there a benefit? Do you find, like, do most of them at least start off in that field? Like, I know you came from which, because you did several things.
I started off in the early 80s. I was doing new construction. We did about 3 years. Then I started remodeling. Remodeling was a lot more fun for me. And then,
Do you find today there's like a lot of HGTV inspectors? Like, are they just love homes, and so they like, I'm gonna
there it is. Yeah, it's the excitement of having your own business and doing something that they think they could do to start their own business that's successful. And that's what happened in the real estate boom. Is that everybody got their real estate license, everybody got their home inspection license, and everything just kind of fell into it really quick. We were doing a lot of home inspections. We just couldn't do enough home inspections a month. There's so many that were coming in, but then the boom went away, and that's when we lost a lot of people in our business, home inspectors. So we probably lost at least 2/3 of the home inspectors in Arizona. So we dropped down quite a bit. We had almost 2,000 home inspectors in Arizona, and it dropped down to 400 something.
Oh my gosh, which is good for you because then that keeps you busy. But I mean, wow.
Yeah, well, it's grown since then. We're back up. We're back up to 800 right now.
And all of Arizona?
Yes, the whole state of Arizona.
That still surprises me that it's only 800.
But, and I
Most
guess,
of them are in the valley. There's a lot in the valley. There's only about 5 home inspectors in the state of Arizona that's been doing home inspections as long as I have, and who has done as many as I have. So it's a number I track. It's something that I keep track of.
Okay.
We lost a lot of guys that were licensed before the boom, lose their license afterwards because of not being able to survive. They went into a different career. So one of the big things about the home inspection report, we had a lot of questions about how home inspection reports are done, what's in the home inspection, what's important about it. Well, there's things that we go by. Like I build my own home inspection report. I got a software a long time ago, and every word in mine I've written. So we have to go by their standards. This is the standard that home inspectors in Arizona go by. It gives a breakdown in here, professional practices. It tells us what needs to be in the beginning. So what we have to note for like our agreement with the home buyer, and then it goes through roof, what we have to look at with the roof, what we have to look at with foundations, plumbing, every single thing. Most of the things in here say we have to observe, that we don't have to, we just have to say that we observed it. We don't have to write anything about it. You have to observe it, say the condition of it, and if there's something wrong with it, you can recommend having another guy take a look at it.
Now,
that's
is
really
that
good.
because that's not your specialty? I mean,
Most
or
guys,
is
yeah,
that- okay.
they don't, this is also designed to help protect the home inspectors too. So,
Okay.
so we're not, like the same thing with real estate, you have protections too. So with that said, if you have an issue with the home inspector, say like you're on the listing side and they have something in there in the inspection report, you can go and look this up. Josh, hand it up. Thank you. So this is a website. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is the website for the BTR. So
https://
First one,
Yeah.
this is the direct link to
Okay.
our thing, but if you go right to here,
BTR.
it's just btraz.gov, btr.az.gov. And if you just look up BTR on Google, it'll take you to the webpage. You just have to do a little searching for it. But this will give you this information right here, and it'll give you every single thing that the home inspector has to look at, that they're required to look at. Thing is that home inspectors add stuff to the report over time. Like I have added things to my inspection report. Something that I've added, for instance, is you have to describe the material that the roof sheeting's made out of. I've added in the report that it has a radiant barrier on it. It has a radiant barrier because it's a good thing that the buyer want to know that it is something that will be energy efficient, energy cost savings for them. So generally, I'll just put a picture of it and a description, a long description of what it does and why it's important, how it saves money.
Okay.
So this is something that it can be really informative for you if you have trouble with an inspector or you don't think your inspector's doing the right thing. You can look it up on here and you can see that it's should be in the report or should not be in the report. It's just something that the guy added on.
When it comes to like a tip off, because right off the bat, in order to do what they want, and forgive me if I'm tell me to hold off if you're going to touch it later.
Sure I cover some things for you.
Yeah. Obviously, if they're going to check a roof, you need a ladder. If you're going to get in a crawl space, you probably need at least a flashlight and a few other things. It would be good to have, what are the things that measure if an outlet's working or not? There's a lot of different things. Okay. Historically speaking, many of us have seen those exposés on Dateline and different things like that, right? So, what are some tip offs right off the bat that an inspector should bring with them, should have, et cetera, et cetera? Just visually, this may or may not be a good inspector just by the fact that they showed up in in a little hatchback vehicle and didn't even have a ladder. You know what I mean?
I've had an inspector do that, and it's
Yeah.
like, "Where's your ladder?"
Yeah.
What do you
For
mean
example.
ladder? And it's like, "Aren't you going to get up and check the roof?" No, that's not my job. Oh,
It is their job to check it. But the thing is the way this is written is they have to describe how they check it.
yeah.
So legally, how this is written is that it can say, "I inspected the roof from the ground." So he would have to note that. If it's not noted in there that he inspected it from the ground, then that's where he get in trouble. But he says he inspected it from the ground, fine.
So basically they can say, I inspected the front exterior of the house as I drove by.
Yeah, it's just that they have to describe how they did it.
They have to be accurate, whether they're complete or
Yeah.
not. in their
So
inspection.
one of the big things in there too is that for instance, like tile roofs. I don't walk on tile roofs because I break tiles when I walk on tile roofs, and 99% of the guys will, unless they weigh $1.25. They're going to break tiles because they actually fracture, and then over time they'll separate as they're walking on them. So it's best not to walk on the tiles. For instance, like when I do 1-year warranty inspections, 1 year after the house is built, the roofers all walked on the roof. There's always a lot of broken tiles on the roof, cracked tiles that need to be replaced. So
How about getting up to roof level and using binoculars?
yes, majority of mine are. I take my ladder and go around the whole roof, and I'm at roof level when I'm going around, and that way I can look at the roof, and I lift the first couple rows of tiles, make sure they're nailed properly. You look at the lap, how far. There's so many things you have to look at on the roof. So if you're not up at roof level, you can't tell those things. So if you're at the bottom. So if they're on the ground without a ladder, because I know guys that bring an 8-foot fiberglass A-frame ladder, and they'll say that it's too high to access with my ladder, so it's an unsafe condition. Fine, that they just described why they can't go in the attic, and they don't go in the attic. There's been inspection things done by news stations where they look at guys, and the guy look at the attic, and he just walks away, never goes in the attic. But if he wrote in his report, attic was inaccessible, then that's fine, because he didn't have access to the attic.
That's more of a subjective
Uh-huh.
statement. To him, it was inaccessible. To you, it might not be.
Yeah. So as a home buyer, you're doing, as an agent for your buyer, you're doing a disservice to them by someone's report like that, because they're just writing off all the things they can't do in the house. I know guys that do 5 inspections a day, and that's how they do their reports. But the people, they don't read the body of the report. That says roof fine, everything's good on there. Roof is in good condition, for its age, that kind of thing. But if you read through the body, did not walk on the roof, did not look at the roof from the ladder, only looked at it from ground, and maybe with binoculars. They do that. Because some roofs that are above 21 feet, I use binoculars because I carry a 21-foot ladder and I don't have enough to go over that and climb up on the roof in a safe condition. So there's that. So if someone says that you have a high roof, I can bring a 28-foot ladder. But after that height, you start getting certain injuries and stuff like that.
How would you inspect an air handler that's up in the attic?
Air handler in the attic, you go up into the attic and take it apart. Yeah. As long as it's accessible. And there's not going to be an air handler in an attic if it's not accessible. So you need so much space to allow mechanicals into an attic. And so that's why they're always accessible. The only thing that would stop them is a ladder. They don't have a ladder to get up there and look at it.
So I have a question. You as an inspector, how would you suggest that we handle? There are inspectors who really, they're contracted by the potential buyer or their agent, and they come in and they're absolutely adversarial. They are, and it's not just, you don't even get the impression that it's a kind of an open inspection. What I find, I find. What I don't find, I don't. They're coming at you adversarially in an attempt to deliberate attempt probably to do some price negotiations or whatever. I'm sure that in your time in the business, you probably met some of those. And how do you suggest that we handle it whenever it just doesn't seem to be reasonable at all? And it literally does come across adversarial in their report.
And do they have skin in the game? Are they trying to go after the repair?
Yeah, they get.
That's why we became licensed, because it actually states that a home inspector cannot physically do any work on a house for 2 years after they do an inspection.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
So what that does is it gets rid of the sales guy. The roofers, those guys got out of the business in 2003 because they couldn't do an inspection on a house and sell somebody a roof. They would do an inspection on a house and they would sell that seller a roof because they would say the roof needs to be replaced.
That explains some stuff.
So that's one of the strong reasons why we became licensed.
What about, are you allowed to do referrals?
We can do referrals, but it's recommended not to. It comes back just like, you guys have problems with referrals, refer people, and you refer. I used to refer an AC guy, and he was the last time I referred an AC guy where he drove up to the house. He did the inspection and testing of the air conditioning unit from his truck. He never left his truck. He just drove up to the house. The only reason we know this is because the homeowner was sitting in the kitchen of her house watching the guy. Yeah. And so he wrote up that the capacitor, the fan, and the unit need to be cleaned and serviced. Oh, wow. The charge was low on it and stuff. So, and he never even walked up to the place.
He had binoculars in his glasses though, right? That way he could.
That way you know.
Oh my gosh.
That makes me concerned because I've had a few people that come in with just that same assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the fan, so with what you're saying before, okay, the guy that finds everything wrong with the house. So your main thing with the house is that it's got to be in functioning. It works. It functionally works. So I can go into a house and look at this air conditioning unit. It's 30 years old.
Mm-hmm, but it's working.
It's working. I always recommend that you get the thing serviced. The reason I recommend get it serviced because I'm not putting an amperage check to see how much current that compressor is pulling. And the compressor on it is on average, it's going to pull 40 to 60% what it's rated at. Because there'll be an RLA, let's say rated load amps for the compressor. And you want it to be 40 to 60% of that. Once you start getting higher, once you start getting to 90, you're at failure of the compressor. It's going to go soon. So it's probably that next summer it's going to go when it's used all the time. So, but if they test it and the compressor is good, everything on the unit's fine. There's been Ream units that I've seen that ran 30, 40 years, no problem. And they're usually on apartments because they're more expensive and stuff. And when they first build them, and they last a long time as long as they're maintained. And that's one of the biggest things too is if you can show servicing of things like your air conditioning unit, all that kind of stuff. So if someone comes into your inspection, that's why I always recommend doing a inspection before you put the house on the market. If you do that, it's going to tell you everything that's wrong with the house. Well, let me correct that. If you do it with an experienced home inspector who knows how to do an inspection and check for the things that should be checked for listing the house, he can give you a list of things, just a normal inspection report, things that are going to need to be repaired, and you can make those repairs. So you get the air conditioning unit serviced, and then you have that documentation. When you go to list the house, it'll be sitting on your counter with the other paperwork saying air conditioning service, and the air conditioning guy said it was fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. So this other side can't see anything. Yes, sir.
How long is that good for? Does it flow over and be acceptable as part of the
servicing? Most things are a year. So it's always recommended air conditioning units be serviced yearly, especially after the first 3 or 5 years. You definitely want to have them serviced yearly. It depends on the manufacturer. So if you have like a Goodman unit from 2005 to 2010, those had high failure rates because they were making those for builders units, and they were selling the cheapest one.
What I really mean, Steve, is I hire you to come in and do a pre-inspection of the listing that I'm taking.
Snapshot.
How long is that inspection?
That same day. Yes.
Just like an appraisal, classify it as a snapshot in time.
The home inspection
Only
is
that
only for
moment.
that day. There's no guarantee, there's no warranty. All they're doing is telling you the condition of the home and at that time that you're in there. One of the things to be aware of too is that home inspectors are people, and you can have a home inspector come in and inspect your house, and then you can have another home inspector come in the same day and inspect the house, another one come in the next day and inspect the house, and they can all find different things. And it's a lot of times they write up things that they think is important, things that are not important, that kind of thing. And that's the reason why I had 5 categories in my inspection report, because in doing inspections for so long, there's the transaction inspection, and then there's what the buyer wants to know. This guy wants to walk into his house and he wants to know, are my faucets corroded, and underneath the valves and stuff, are they corroded, and are they going to need to be replaced or repaired, that kind of thing. Do I have sticky doors in the house? They get mad because their door doesn't latch shut when they shut it, and that should latch shut, but it's not on our we're not required to tell you that. We just say the door's functional. That's really it. So over time, I put that in an observation. It's just to say, observe this. But what we're really looking at is safety, major defects. Things that are going to cost you more than $500 is what's really, that's my low point. It's $500. It's an arbitrary dollar amount that over my time, I've found that, people will get upset about.
So if I bring you in, say, prior to my listing, 3 months down the road, I have listed it, I've been escrow now, do you come out at a discounted rate and recertify it? Or?
I don't do discounts. I do 1-year warranties. Everybody always wants a discount on the 1-year warranties too. But the reason I don't do that is because I'm looking at the same things all over again. There's nothing different. Now, if I'm doing a reinspection where I'm looking at things that were repaired, that's a much lower price. Generally, that's between $100 and $120. Just depends on drive time, things like that for places. How much is being looked at doesn't really matter. It's just $100 for me, because I'll just go off my checklist of things to look at, make sure they're repaired correctly. There's no problems with it. So if you do a listing inspection and everything's fixed on it, I'll come back and look at it again to make sure that it's fixed correctly. Because some people, like say you have dry rot in the fascia board and of your eaves and stuff, some people would just put spackle over it and then paint it, and that's not an exterior material. That's it. And no, it's not a fix, and it looks like spackle when it's painted over and stuff. And you poke at it and it breaks off, because we're allowed to poke at things. It tells us that we have to poke at things.
Yeah,
and
I would think so.
But it also says not to cause damage when you poke at things. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right?
A little lid.
Right. So if you poke at something, you see that it's causing damage, then you should stop. But if you poke at it and it causes damage, that's kind of acceptable if it causes just a minor amount of damage. But you keep digging at it to find the whole area of the damage, that's beyond what you should be doing.
You said 1 year. Do you provide warranties as an inspector yourself?
No, I don't. It's not
like new builds, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 year. Oh, what about the big thing now is putting the home warranties on listings right away, and then it transfers over to the buyer,
right,
and everything. But because it's such a big thing now, there was a time that right after the close of escrow, something happened. We could call a warranty company, and good warranty companies would come out and cover it, especially if there was an inspection ahead of time.
Right.
Now we're getting a few more no's on that. Does the home inspection carry any weight? Let's say with an air conditioner, you did the basic readings on it. At that time, before the close of sale, here's evidence of the compressor, whatever it was drawing, or the readings on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever contact you? Do you ever contact them and say, hey, I looked at this?
Yeah, they do. They contact you, and they'll ask you to go over your report again with them. What did you find? Why did you say something? Those kind of things. So generally, what the trend with these warranty companies is that if you read the wording in their agreements with you. It'll say what they'll do and what they won't do. Like a lot of them will say repair but not replace. So they won't replace the unit; they'll just repair the unit. And they have their guys that come out to do their servicing for them. And that guy is gonna want to keep their business, so he does their servicing to protect their company too. So he'll come out and say, if he thinks that the unit is not going to last maybe 3 years, he'll say it needs to be replaced. They have some sort of date that they'll say how long it's going to last for. And like when you work with your clients on buying a house, you want to know that the roof's going to last so many years and the air conditioning's going to last so many years. Once you think it's going to last less than that, you want it replaced. So they're trying to cover themselves because that's, they need to make money by you buying their warranties, not fixing things though. So you want to make sure in the paperwork that it says repair and replace and what other details they may have in there.
But they potentially, there have been times where the warranty companies have literally called you to find out.
Yes. They've asked, big things they get called on is the air conditioning units and dishwashers. And the reason it's dishwashers is because you can open up a dishwasher and it looks just fine. Everything in it looks good. It runs perfectly. But you disconnect it and pull the thing out from the wall, it could be completely corroded in the backside of it, and you won't know it. So their question is, how come you didn't see it or something like that? So we have to explain to them sometimes that we can't pull it out. We can't disconnect it. We can't cause damage to a house. We can't take things apart. There's certain things that we can do and can't do in a house.
And I think that's where the potential buyer has to be educated, because when they say the home's inspected, then I'm thinking of a deal that, I had you come out to inspect, and the new buyer was under the impression that you were going to go, like you had to check every outlet, and because she said something's wrong with the dishwasher. It's like, well, it was functioning at the time we had the inspection, and so things happen, but that's why you have home warranties.
Yes.
But I think.
I know one of the things that Steve does is first thing you do is come and turn stuff on.
Yeah.
So it can be going while you're out doing something else, and then you check back to see.
Yeah.
I try to cause failure with things. Like when I go into the bathroom, I turn everything on that runs water, and I try to flood the pipes in case they do have something that's drainage problems. And what I end up seeing, especially in 2-story homes, is that the cleanouts will flood because they get it back, because you have so much water you can fill that pipe up with, because it's a 4-inch pipe, and then how long it is underground, because it drops when you get up right from your house. It's an automatic drop of about 6 feet. It goes down. So you have all this pipe to fill up. It depends on where it clogs at. You have tree roots, anything like that that's in the drain line. So I run all that stuff as long as possible. I'll run the faucets in the bathroom for up to like 10 minutes. I'll let everything just run to try to find a problem, or if something's leaking. Notorious things for leaking are your shower stalls, where they connect to the floor pan. They're not sealed properly a lot of times, and they'll actually leak water out.
Well, I want to know how to better educate my buyers and stuff, so that, because like I said, I think some of them have expectations, like their house is in perfect shape when they come in, and that's not realistic.
That they're covered
Yeah.
if they're purchasing a home warranty or they're purchasing one for them.
Yeah.
And I find that home warranty companies are going to get out as much as they can. Now, I don't know the responsibility of the inspector, but if I have a light fixture, you turn the switch on and the light came on, that's a visual.
Right.
And 2 days later, I throw the switch and the light don't come on. Not a light bulb, I check the light bulb. But the warranty company is saying, hey, that has to have been effective before the warranty went into place.
That's the thing about the home inspection report, is that in the inspection report, it'll just give a description of testing all light switches and outlets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In the standard of practice, you only have to check one outlet per room. You only have to test one window per room. So
That's a low standard of practice.
yeah, it is. And then you have the receptacle, which has 2 outlets on the receptacle, and you only have to test one of the receptacles on there. So the big thing is that you go through, like I'll go through a room and I'll check one outlet on a wall, on each wall, because I know if one's working on each wall, and if there's a problem, it'll be in that short area. Right. And usually 9 out of 10 times, it's the connection at that receptacle itself that's the problem. So in doing that, you almost catch everything all the time. But once you start finding issues, you start finding something wrong, like open grounds, things like that, then it becomes every outlet thing. You check. And that's what happens is that once you start finding problems, you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what happens to me is that I do an inspection. It's a 2-hour inspection, ends up being 4 hours because all these things you start finding wrong with the home. And it could just snowball down. And especially when you're dealing with older homes because people make changes. You go from a home that's built in the 50s and there are no grounds in their system. And the house is rewired, you go in the attic and there's all kinds of spider webs of wiring, connectors with the slugs on old junction boxes. It keeps going on with things like that.
Oh, we don't find nothing like that.
Yeah. So when it comes to an average home here in Arizona, there's a lot of like comparisons trying to compare apples to apples, right? So a lot of people think like new homes. I'm going to buy a new home because it's going to be perfect. Do share.
The average home has a lot of things wrong with it, no matter if it's 50 years old or if it's a brand new build. Brand new builds have, because if you look at the brand new build, who builds the house? It's not the builder. It's who they contract out with. And that contractor is like a government contractor. It's the lowest bidder. They're going to take the lowest guy so they can make more money because they're going to sell that $500,000 house for $500,000 no matter who builds the house for them. So they're going to get
may not be there.
Right. And their experience, because I know in, 3 years ago, Arizona was 60% manned with contractors. And then within a couple of years ago, it was like 70 to 80% manned. So they're still undermanned. So they're taking anybody who knows somebody to do the work, and they do the on-the-job training. I'll go to new construction. I'll do a phase inspection, and you'll watch these guys. They'll follow you around sometimes and do repairs while you're walking around the house and you're writing stuff up, and they're behind you fixing things. And you'll see a lot of times there's one guy that's telling everybody how to do things, and he'll show them how to do it. Then he'll keep doing it throughout the house.
Oh, wow.
He'll show them on one thing, and it's
on the job training. Huh?
It is on the job training, and that's why a lot of homes still have problems. I'll go to new builds and I'll go into the pantry, hit the light switch for the pantry, and the kitchen light goes off. Because they just wired it wrong.
Especially if they were using 3-way switches.
And they do have a lot of problems with 3-way switches being non-functional. That switches have to be in certain positions for the light to go on and off. They don't have the trace wire hooked up correctly.
They have to rewire it correctly between them.
Right.
Well, one of the things that Charlotte just mentioned, I can tell you that whenever, and you know this too, that whenever Steve goes out, he gives us a big report, then he gives us a summary report.
The summary, and those are the primary.
And what I tell people is it's his job to tell us everything that he sees, everything that he finds. And it's going to be, it may be 100 things in the big report. In the summary report, that's the thing we're going to focus in on because that's where you usually put safety issues.
Right.
And you sum it all up there. And out of all of that, we may or may not even do anything about the safety issues, depending on what it is. But you shared that it's a potential hazard or to check for something else. So I prepare our people by saying, his job is to tell us what he sees. And it's going to be a whole bunch of stuff because he sees a lot. But that's not what we're going to be looking at the end. We're going to look at the things that are safety issues, especially. That may be virtually nothing, depending on the inspection. But we're going to still get a big book back of everything. And then that helps prepare them, because if you don't prepare them ahead of time, they're going to go, I don't want this house, because you just sent me a 40-page thing saying everything that you see that isn't perfect.
Yeah. Right. That's the thing with safety issues is that safety issues is no matter the cost, because it's a safety issue. So with the GFCI outlet, controlling GFCI outlets fail, and it's next to, and you have an outlet next to the sink, and it has to be on one. The receptacle is $15 to $50 for a receptacle. It just depends on the quality of receptacle you buy, and then have an electrician install it. So it's not that expensive. The attic scuttle access in the garage has to be fire rated and weighted. If it's not, it's a safety issue. But in reality, it's less than $50 to fix it. So it depends on you use a handyman or a licensed professional on it. It just has to be 5/8 inch drywall weighted, and then it's a fire barrier. The garage door going in inside, outside the house, inside the garage, that needs to be self-closing, self-latching. Those springs that close the door are $25. So they're pretty cheap to do, but they're safety issues, and they have to be noted in the report.
I like the idea of doing a pre-inspection before the listing. That way, if the owner's not going to come to the table, don't hire me.
Yeah, it can save you a lot with that, because when you do the listing inspection and you go in as an agent, someone buying the house, you'll see this report. And one of the things you want to look at the report, again, one of the things you want to look at the report is the experience of the home inspector. The quickest way to do that is look at their license number. And you can go online.
The lower the number, the longer
Right.
they've been in.
You can go online, you can check the exact date they got their license. And at the BTR website, it'll give all our information. It says license, our business license, which is our office, like mine's Canyon State Property Inspections. We have to have a license for our office, and then we have a license for each individual home inspector. And so you can go online, you can look up when you got your license. Mine's, I think mine's March of 2003. And so you can go online, just look at, see when they got their license. So then you look at that, you say, okay, this guy got his license last year. What other background does he have? Why is he writing up that there's black widows in the attic? That's a pest control guy. That's not, his job.
So do they have to do is it like an apprenticeship thing? Is that how they get their 500 up front? How do they?
No, there's no 500 up front. That's for ASHI.
That's for ASHI.
Not for state. The state requires 30 home inspections.
30.
But they're parallel inspections, meaning that I take a guy with me and I do inspections with them, and then he writes up his report. I have to review his report to make sure that it covers state minimum standards.
So he has to shadow with a licensed inspector.
And he has to write 30 non-paid inspections.
And if he goes along with the guy that's doing 5 in a day, he could literally have a week's worth of training and then be off on his own.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I met a couple of those.
I like what Breakthrough is doing with you.
Yeah.
The business relationship is a covenant agreement of what the outcome is supposed to be. Plus trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole name of this thing. There's too many variables in order to tie it all down.
Right.
So, okay. So a couple other, I got lots of questions actually. I can go on. When it comes to your your new homes, still not perfect, right? What are your most common things that you could almost walk in and predict are going to be in almost a home? I know that there's a laundry list that a standard home is going to have, and as buyers agents, those standard things may or may not, just because it's not perfect does not mean it's broken. Things like that. So can you help? What are the top 5 things you find in almost every home, for example?
So with just new builds?
Either or,
So one of the things is that I notice is that first year the people are in a house, whether it's a new build or not, they just bought their dream house and it's become a nightmare to them.
Mm-hmm.
So who are they going to blame? They're going to blame the builder or the agent. That's usually who they're going to blame, and something like that. So in doing inspection, like when I go into a 1-year warranty inspection, and the buyer the homeowner is really just annoyed with the builder. They're not fixing things. They have all kinds of problems, stuff like that. And I just listen to what they have to say, because they've been in the house for a year. Listen to what they have to say, and I can almost find exactly what their problems were each time. Why rooms are hot, why rooms aren't cooling the same temperature as other rooms next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's not sitting out on a peninsula where you have 3 exterior walls and attic. Generally, it's going to be hotter in that room. But if it's in the middle of the house, why is it hotter? Is it duct not? A lot of times what happens is in those rooms that the duct supplying air to that room is bent too far. And so if you take a duct and you start to turn it, it's a spring duct that it collapses inside. So you're reducing the amount of airflow. There's too much friction for the air to flow through those. Right. Yeah. And that's because the guys aren't experienced. They don't have enough guys in the trades to install them properly. They don't get enough training on that. So they just jam stuff in there and bend it and stuff like that, collapse ducts. Right.
Do they
Things like that.
require a balance test?
No.
In commercial, we always require a balance test.
Well, commercial, you also have metal ducts. So when you have metal ducts in a commercial and some residentials before a certain time period, there are a lot of metal ducts. But if you have metal ducts, don't get rid of them. Just clean them and make sure they're insulated on the outside, because there's nothing better. They're going to keep better airflow.
That's true.
You're not going to have leaks. There's just a lot better system than a insulated
One of the
flexible
more
duct.
thoughtful things that builders, designers do, as far as the engineering of those systems, is to maybe put a return in a room to help keep
Yes.
it balanced.
So the peninsula room, something's outside.
Uh-huh.
What they do is they'll put that room will have a return air, so the circulation in that room is a lot better. It's a lot faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to draw air all the way to the hallway. They can just circulate it right in that room, and that's what will make a room. If you see that in a room, you know that room's going to be hotter than the rest of the house. It's engineered. You know that room's actually they've experienced
A lot
that
of like
room's hotter.
mother-in-law suites and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's on the same system, so they have a dampening system. Dampening meaning that you have one thermostat that has, or you have multiple thermostats, but one unit, and each thermostat can open and close a gate that's going to open and close in a duct.
Mm.
So if you see one thermostat, you see multiple thermostats and only have one unit, that's what's going on with it. It works on a dampening system.
So if it's not needed in that room, they can redirect that air to another.
Yeah. So if you have one in the master bedroom and you're the only people in the house, you can shut your door to the master bedroom if you have a return and a thermostat, turn the rest of the house to 80 and turn your master bedroom to 72, and your electric bill probably won't change. It'll stay the same, but your room will be freezing.
You're just redirecting that cold air.
You basically turned it into a small unit for just that one room. So, and it's the same big unit.
Then you can keep your meat in that room.
Yeah. Right. Trends that I see a lot right now with new builds is that under installation of attics. I see it a lot. It's been going on for the last 5 years, where a lot of people are getting the R38 insulation, which cellulose is 10.53 inches. I'll see them with 8 inches to 6 inches sometimes in insulation. And what they're doing is they're taking the extra insulation they've left over, putting it into another house, so they're getting kind of a deal. They'll end up getting.
And that's after settling, or like
That's at 1 year, so it's after settling.
Okay.
So the settling number is 10.53. The blown-in number is it's like 11.2. The blown-in number for cellulose is that. So when the number that we give on our inspection report is the settled number, it's not the spray-in number. So, but the only thing is, when I go into older homes, say the house is 50 years old, I'll write in the insulation is say like an R15 in the attic, and standard today is an R30, but at certain years, if I look at a house that's built in the 40s, there was no insulation standard. 50s, there were no insulation standards.
that was just a bonus. You had it.
Right. That's maybe something somebody added on back in the 70s or something like that, or even 80s. But there's compression ratio with insulation, so it does compact. So it's more of an observation with things. And we let people know inside the body of the report that your insulation's at this, and it should be at something, for today's standard, it should be at this. So, other things you see, especially with new builds, is that the heating unit's not connected correctly in the attic. It's not even put together or even on sometimes. The ductwork, the flue for water heaters and for the furnace aren't connected properly. There's no vent cap on the top. And I know it's something simple, but if they don't put that on there, you get water inside there. That's going to cause corrosion to the heat exchanger, and then it leaks gas into the house. So carbon monoxide gas. So you don't want to have that.
Are a lot of the new builds, are they going more with gas today? Or are they still predominantly electric?
It's what's available in areas. Because I know that, and it depends on the builder. Sometimes I can go to homes that have gas running right by the community, but the community is all electric. So it depends. Builders right now, I still see both. So.
Now, this might be a silly question, but it seems like a lot of the older units, especially two-story homes, they were built with only one AC. And it seems like a lot of the newer models have 2 units for the 2-story. Or are we finding that depending on the size of the home is what, determines whether there's going to be 1 or 2 ACs?
Yes and no. There's square footage and tonnage are the 2 things you're looking at. So how big the air conditioning is to how many square feet it can go up to. So ballpark, it's 400 to 600 square feet per ton of air conditioning. That's just a ballpark number to work with, because it also depends on facing direction of the home facing, type of windows that the house has in, how many windows the house has. So if you have a metal framed window and it faces the sun, you have a lot of windows facing the sun, it's going to be a lot hotter, because if you take a temperature reading inside a window in the summertime, it may be at 170 degrees, the window frame. So that's just going to heat the house up. So all these things come into factor: the size of the air conditioning unit. Having a unit upstairs and only one unit and the returns upstairs, generally that's because having a 2-story home, the hot air is going to rise. So that it will work like that. It's not going to be as efficient though, because it's always going to have that hot air drawn into it. So.
When it comes to your 5 categories, what are they?
I have safety, major defects, service and repair, observation, monitor and maintain.
Okay.
What was the last one?
Monitor and maintain. So, and a lot of them fall underneath that. If I see rust, corrosion on some of the faucets and stuff like that, the valves, I mean, not the faucets themselves, or even the faucets themselves are corroded. If it's functional, it's functional. I'll just put in an observation that it's severely corroded. As long as it's not corroded to where it becomes sharp edges. If it becomes sharp edges, then it'll be recommended for replacement.
I know of one of the regular things that I see on the reports, always from you, and it's water flowing to the foundation instead of away.
Yeah.
It's always on there, and it doesn't matter if it's a new house or a pre-owned house. It's almost always there.
Yeah. Do they actually monitor that when they build?
Well, when they build a house, the grading it has to be checked. So there's actually a final checklist that they have to have certified that the grading is correct on the house. And sometimes they're not. It's just not. But grading the house is the reason it's so important, is because you flow water to the house. It gets underneath the foundation. It's going to heave the foundation. If it's a floating slab, you have the slab and the stem wall and the slab. The slab gets underneath it, and it'll lift up. It'll float like that. And what happens is you get so much water underneath, the house in the center starts to lift and move. You start to get cracking, movement of the trusses, things like that. One of the easiest things as an agent, when you walk into a house and you start seeing cracks in doorways, and you start seeing cracks around windows and stuff like that. If you look at the corners of the walls from the exterior wall to the, if you look at the exterior wall and the interior of the house, and that wall, you start seeing that there's a crack down that, or the paint starts to like bubble, ripple, or looks like it's tearing. It's because the stem wall is staying still, interior wall is moving on that. So it's sliding against each other. So the foundation's moving. That's what's causing that. 9 times out of 10, you just need to fix the drainage. If you fix the drainage on the house, the problem stops. As long as there's nothing structural with the house, anything like broken trusses, any of the foundations to the point that it needs to be repaired, like you need to put a jack system in or something like that, other support. It's just fix the drainage. And that's why it's on there so many times, because I can see that the problems, I've been doing this so long, you can look at a house and you can see what's going to happen next to it.
So as an agent, we're taking our potential buyers to homes, and we begin to settle in on something. We're going to call you. What is it that you suggest that we kind of keep an eye open for as we're visiting with our potential buyers and kind of focusing in? Are there upfront things that maybe we should pay attention to that you would suggest as an inspector?
So when you go into a house and you look at a house with your clients, my recommendation would be know the age of the house. This is the most important thing. So if you know that this house is 20 years old and you walk into it and none of the appliances, you go to the air conditioning unit, it's original with the house, the water heater is original with the house, the roof, they said nothing's been done to the roof. You'll know that you're at that point in time where you're replacing all these things. You're going to replace the water heater. You're going to replace the air conditioning unit. You're going to put a roof on the house. All these things are coming to cost for you. Because between like 12 and 25 years, the home has a lot of parts that are replaced on it. And that's why if you look at a house that's 40 years old, you'll have less problems with a 40-year-old house than you will with a 20-year-old house.
Because they've already replaced a lot of the stuff.
A lot of things have been replaced. And a lot of times is that the person who lives in the house, they say, I want a better air conditioning unit than the cheap thing they put in there in the first place. So they'll put a nice unit inside the house, something that will work a lot better, be more cost efficient for you. Because air conditioners are rated by their SEER, their seasonal energy efficiency rating of the unit. So as a homeowner, you're not going to go to the state minimum. Years ago it was 10, then 12, then 14 now. You're not going to go with the lower one. You may say, I want a 16 SEER. But the air conditioners, you really want to go by how long you're going to be in the house to your payback on the air conditioner.
The older units were inefficient the colder it got for heat. And it was thought of a heat strip would work along with that unit instead. Are the new units Sears better at providing heat than the old ones?
Much better. They're actually used in Canada now, in the cold areas in Canada.
So they actually handle freezing temperatures.
So heat pumps, yeah, they're a lot better now. Rarely find a heat strip in them now. Even with a lot of them you see with the tag on them, and if the tag's not marked to what, and it says it's a heat pump, and there's no, it says it can have a heat strip in it, and if it's not marked, it doesn't have a heat strip in it. So.
This kind of changes the subject a little bit, but I was just thinking on hot water heaters, we had a situation where we were trying to determine the age of the hot water heater, and the hot water heater put in was much older than the date it had actually been installed. And so
The age of the house even.
how, because obviously I want to know how old that hot water heater is, but I want to know how long it's been in my house. So is there not a thing that says, that they have to say, this is the age of the hot water heater, but this is when it was installed in this home?
This seller? No, the only thing, it's a home inspector. All we have to do is tell you the age of the unit, and we have to tell you the condition of the unit. So what I do is I put in observations, because I run into air conditioning units like that, and water heaters like that are very common because their water heater broke. So they had this plumber who says, yeah, I got this older one I can throw in there. It works just fine. It's not leaking right now.
Yeah.
So you know that it's a gas unit, it's going to leak. It's because the tanks corrode over time.
Yeah.
And the electrode in it will start to corrode. And once that thing's gone, then the tank starts getting corroded. So
With some of our new houses in the area, whenever the crash occurred, the housing crash, the builder may have bought 1,000 water heaters over here.
Yeah, and then
3 years later started using them.
Yes.
Can they do that?
Yes.
They can do that.
Yep. And so I see that still right now. I'll do a 1-year warranty inspection, and the air conditioner is 2 or 3 years old. I still see that. And that's because builders do buy in bulk. And that's one of the things that you'll notice with microwaves. Certain microwaves have a higher failure rate than others. They leak radiation, things like that. Microwaves, you look at them, the microwave will be 2-3 years old, because the builder will say, I'm going to buy 1,000 microwaves and I'm going to throw them all in this, because this is the one we're putting right now. This is our plan to put all these in these houses. And so the homeowner buys the house, and the microwaves are already expired from its warranty. So the only warranty they have is from the builder on it.
And so that to me is a thing that we need to know, that if they're putting in a water heater was built in 2006, but it's not put in until 2012, that maybe that's an issue when we have talked to the home warranty people.
Manufacturer's warranty is gone.
Yeah. Well, the manufacturer, their warranties are usually the 6 years on the tank itself. They'll say that on them, because there's 6 years for a reason, because that's when they start to fail. So that's why they have it.
Well, that's why I'm saying I don't think I want that 2006 put in my house. But that's what they had on hand. And before I forget, so you said safety, major defects. What were the others?
So you have safety, major defects, service and repair.
Oh, service.
Monitor and maintain. Observation.
Oh, observation.
Now, do you check microwaves as an inspector?
I do.
For
Yep.
leaks?
Yes. I have a radiation leak detector for them. And you're really checking, checking the door. It's the door. It's mean you're looking for the leaks, because that's where it happens. That's where it affects you. So just check around the door and check the door screen. So it just run the leak detector around it, and it has a little analog thing that moves back and forth on it.
What are the big issues that you've found to be the most common ones here in the Valley? like foundation issues, like trust, different things. Like what, as far as more serious stuff, what are the more common ones that we run into?
The most common one is the drainage. It's the thing that causes problems to somebody's house, and you'll see all the cracking in the walls, other damage they have, patio issues, things like that, because they're draining their yard to their house, and that causes most of the problems. And everything else is basically just there's nothing there's always trends in things.
Mhm.
Certain things you'll see that because homes were built at a certain time, like in the West Valley, in new communities they built in the West Valley, and they built them in around 2002, 2003. They had a manufacturer that installed windows that had a high failure rate. Almost all the windows they had to replace in these communities
Like
because
seals and stuff.
yeah, the seals would go bad on them, and you'd have that black seal to start moving in. They lose their inert gas, and then they just becomes a suction into it. It pulls the seal in.
But in this area, are there really any homes that last for more than a year or two with whatever technology, other than the fact that it's dual pane?
So the big thing with windows is that they're vinyl windows and they're vinyl composite windows. So you want a vinyl composite windows instead of the old windows were vinyl. So we took the windows from other places and brought them here, and they didn't handle the sun. The sun just made them warp. They failed, had high failure rate, all that kind of stuff. Then they started using vinyl composite windows, which made them rigid, a lot stronger. They stopped the heat transfer, and they didn't have the failure rate, high failure rate. And
What was the composite material?
it depends on the manufacturer. They have their own stuff they use. It's not like you had an aluminum frame window and it was all aluminum. The composites are like Anderson has their own material they use. They have their patent on how they make their windows.
Could be engineered material.
Yes, yeah, and they test them. There's places you drive down. I think 17. There's a big test facility where they test materials. You see this big parking lot. There's just random things out in this parking lot, and that's their test site. They just expose it to the sun and see what the sun does
I
to it.
never thought about that.
So I'm guessing that there's originally some kind of value. If you have a dual pane window and they put some kind of gas or something in there, I guess my question is there really a product that you can have a lot of confidence in that doesn't lose that, whatever it is, after a year or two? Or is the primary value to dual pane windows simply the fact that it's dual pane and you have an airspace?
The thing with windows is being dual pane is a space between the spacer bar that you have in there, the material that is. So if it's metal, you'll never know it's leaking until it starts to show moisture inside of it.
Yeah.
Or if it's a low E window, it'll start to corrode. You'll start to see the metal corroding inside the glass. But the wider the bar, the bigger the gap is between the window, the more energy efficient it is.
Okay.
Most windows nowadays have argon gas in them. And
that will stay there
yeah, it's a sealed window.
for years, even in this area.
Yes.
Okay.
The newer windows are like that now, where they last, the composite windows will last a lot longer.
Okay.
The old vinyl clad windows that they used to put in, like I was talking about from 2002, 2003 timeframe, those you would see them, they'd start to ripple, change colors. That's one of the things that happened is that the frames themselves would burn. You'd show the sunburn on them.
I've seen that.
And once they're burning, the material would change itself. It would start to crack. It would start to get a lot more rigid. And so when the wind blows on it, because the wind will actually cause a house to sway, it'll cause the house to move. When the wind blows on the window, it'll cause the glass to move, and it'll separate it from its seal, and then it causes a failure with it.
So would it be accurate if we're trying to just share basic information, not that we're specialists by any means with this, we could say to our clients, dual pane windows, they're old, there's better technology, but the likelihood that it's more efficient than a single pane, that's probably true, but they have other things.
Dual panes are always more efficient
No matter
than single
what.
panes. Yes.
Okay.
What do you think about, because, some of the people coming in with the new windows, where they have like the blind thingy that's on the inside, is that something worth considering? Just practically, I look at it that, there's something else, because.
Well, the question
what
to
I'm
ask is how many failure rates have you found on it?
Should I?
That's-
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside the windows in your house, they're normally
Yeah.
only on doors. Those
Well,
are only on doors.
there's a couple window companies that inside the window itself is, so there's the lever, to open. Yeah. But then my other question too, talking about the foundation, with the number of pools, it's interesting to see when people go to drain their pools that they have it set, where as it drains, that's part of the issue too of water that's going underneath.
Right.
And so is that to me, that's just a matter of education.
That's one of the funny stories I'll never forget from real estate school. You might have been the one that told me years ago, but I thought it was real estate school that one of the this person, was just didn't have a pool, had nothing, and then all of a sudden they started realizing that they were having foundation issues. They brought people after people, and they're like, "You're not like you don't have any issue." Come to find out, their neighbor was backwashing his pool into his neighbor's yard for 20 years or so, and over time had caused foundation issues in his neighbor's house. Crazy.
Yeah.
So if you see your block wall, your fence,
Yeah.
your block wall, and it starts to, the paint's chipping off, and you're starting to see a fluorescence on it with the white stuff that you see growing on it and stuff like that. You're getting a lot of water from somewhere, and usually if it's on, you see that on your side, you're getting it from your neighbor, and it's just causing a lot of moisture in that, and that can be the irrigation. If they're backwashing to your house, the biggest thing you have to do is you look what the city requires.
Okay.
So the city is going to give a requirement for backwashing swimming pools. So they're going to say to your yard, they're going to say you can backwash it to the street or to the sewer system, and how it needs to be done.
Some years ago, aluminum electrical wiring was coded.
Mhm.
They found out that there was too much contraction and expansion in connections. And I don't know if that's out of code now. They don't use aluminum wiring.
So aluminum wiring, so you have aluminum wiring in the houses earlier than 78. The aluminum wiring, you can't come in and say, I can't come in and say that, you have aluminum wiring, you need to replace it. What I say with aluminum wiring, because it was coded at the time of build, and it's aluminum wiring, it does have expansion contraction rate because it's a different material than copper. So if you have copper and aluminum connecting together, the aluminum expands at a much faster rate than the copper does. And so the aluminum will expand and separate from the copper, and then you get an arcing between the two. That arcing is what starts fires. That's why it's a fire hazard. That's a fire hazard that you see in the Northeast, not really in Arizona. There's not really, there may be a couple in Arizona over the life that they've been using aluminum, but not really that much. The biggest thing with that is when you have aluminum, you have to have aluminum connectors. So you have aluminum wire, everything you buy, like an outlet, a switch, if you have aluminum wire, it has to be labeled AL on it for aluminum wire. So do you buy and this is what the problem is too, is that I have aluminum wire in my house that was built in the 60s, and I want to get a light switch, and the aluminum wiring light switch is $6, and the light switch next to it's 58 cents for copper. They buy the 58-cent one and hook it up, not knowing that they're causing a problem with the house. So,
the outlets can be changed out if
yes,
they are.
as long as it's rated aluminum. As long as that switch and outlet is a receptacle is rated for aluminum connection.
I knew an electrician one time was going through the whole house, replacing the tip of the wire, leaving the old, and I don't know what connection he was making between the new connector to the outlet and the wire.
So you can do that, but you can't pigtail them. You have to use a crimping tool. And that crimping tool, what it does is you have this crimp that has aluminum connection here, copper connection here, and then the connection between the two is designed to do the transfer of aluminum to copper. So you would put your copper wire in one part, you put your aluminum wire in the next part, and you crimp the two together. They're two separate wires, not connected together. They're connected by another material.
Oh, okay.
So that's what you can do for them. You can't take the two wires and pigtail them together.
Speed up the arcing. You run into this in your inspections, any?
Well, we can't take everything apart on there. But what I do is once I know the house has aluminum on it, I turn everything on, draw current into the system, and then you can feel it. They'll get hot. Or you take a thermal imaging camera and you can run it through the house, and you can see what's drawing heat on it. So a light switch, when you turn it on, it shouldn't have any heat to it.
Right.
It should flow right through. Heat's a resistance to the current flow. So once something starts getting hot, you know you have some sort of resistance that's going to build up.
Steve inspected one of the houses in Charlotte I bought and advised us it was aluminum. And I guess you did a whole bunch of tests on it or whatever, and we didn't do anything. It bothered me as the second house I ever bought with aluminum. And now what you're talking about, Fred, is that you could buy online these little things for each outlet that it's a whole outlet with a pigtail kind of a thing on it. And they charge like $6 or $8 per, and then they scare you to death by saying you need to have somebody come in who is authorized or experienced to do it, and that's probably the crimping thing that you're talking about. But we just left it that way, and I didn't change any outlets. I never had any real problems other than the innate fear that you have hearing that it's aluminum, you know.
The first thing you'll notice is it'll get hot.
Yeah.
Whatever you're using will get hot. If you unplug something and that outlet, that receptacle is hot, you know you have an issue. Even with copper connections and stuff, you can have a bad connection with a copper one too. And
in your experience, I'm just assuming it's a major thing to come in and change out wire. But
especially in the older homes.
Yeah, but every once in a while, I'll hear of somebody that's done it for just a couple $1,000s. They've been able to do it. Do they just like, in your experience, do they like go overhead or something and just drop everything new, or?
To properly do, like in a block home, for instance, if you're going to do wiring, you're going to cut the ceiling at each point where it goes into the exterior walls. Interior walls, you can go from the attic. Exterior walls, you have to go cut a hole in the ceiling and come down. And what they'll do is they'll fish the wire through. So they'll cut the wire at the top, tie it to the other wire with the fish, and just pull the wire through. And then they'll fish their line through, and then they'll pull the wire through with it.
And they abandon all the other wire?
You can, most of the time they'll take everything out. And if it's in the attic, they can leave it there if they want, but usually they'll pull the wire out with it. The only thing is that you can say, which happens a lot, is that someone will say their house has been rewired. You'll have a 1950 house and it's grounded, all the outlets are grounded. Yeah. But the thing is the outlets and the exterior walls, they have to be through a conduit. And that conduit at the time was metal. So what they'll do is they'll hook the grounding wire to that conduit, and then they'll hook the conduit electrical panel to the ground, so it becomes grounded. So the conduit sheathing around it is actually your ground, not a grounding wire. So yeah, they bypass that.
I think we've experienced that.
I went to change. I had a leak just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a conduit coming out, metal conduit. I touched the conduit and got shocked because something got switched around. I know that we're running, but. Okay, so as an inspector and coming out of your background as a builder and doing all this other stuff, is there one thing that you would see in a home that you'd say, I'm walking away from this right off the bat?
The whole thing with that is your buyer, what they'll do and what they'll put up with, because you can walk into a house and it has asbestos through it everywhere. Like I'll do houses up in Prescott, and the plumbing's all asbestos covered. You know, and there's shingles on the roof are asbestos, and that just scares people to death. You know that there's asbestos because it'll cause cancer for you. My biggest thing is you have foundation issues to the extent that when I start seeing that you need an engineer to look at things, that's me telling you that you got a lot of work to go.
If it's not structurally sound, then that's a problem.
I start throwing flags for engineers, but I do it in two different ways. I'll put it as major defect, get an engineer to look at it, and then I'll put service and repair, have an engineer look at it. When it's under service and repair with engineer look at it, it's worded different so that, like for instance, you have a broken truss in the attic. It's anytime a manufactured truss is required by state to have a state engineer look at it and certify that it's okay for the repair that you made. They'll usually generally give you a standard. So they'll say you have a scissor truss in there, and they'll say, this is our standard for the web member to how to connect it. This is what we usually do. We put a gusset on it, and then we put scissors on each side, and then we put their stamp on it. So they give you a standard one, and then they'll come out and they'll look at it and say, yes, it was done right, and that's the repair. And something like that, that's just minor. Those are usually easy fixes and stuff like that. But when I go to an attic and they put a new air conditioner in the attic and they cut trusses all the way through, and I start to see movement in the walls, and I start to see buckling of the trusses and stuff like that,
Wow.
that is major defect that you really need to get engineered because you have structural changes in the
The
house.
floor joist is just a foot away from the foundation. I
Yeah.
read that.
There's some, yeah, I've gone in houses where they still have knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube wiring, and right off of 7th Avenue and the 10, there's so many houses out there. All those houses that you see that are big used to be small. They keep adding on to them and they get bigger and bigger. And you can find voids and accesses in the areas. And one of these houses I found, I accessed into it and I got into a void where the original house was, the original attic of the house. And there's 2 wire running in with these ceramic connectors and stuff. And I put my electric tester on and they were all live.
Oh,
Ooh.
The big thing is that, I have to note that it's a safety hazard. You have that in the house and stuff because they can't handle the current they did before.
Yeah.
Those are like 5 and 10 amp systems, not the minimum 15 amp systems that we have right now or 20 amp systems that we have right now. New builds right now, it's almost everything's 20 amps they're going through the house, except for your ceiling lights and outlets in bedrooms and stuff. But in seeing that, they also said the house was recently rewired. So there's new wiring throughout the house. So that was a big flag because they didn't replace those things.
So code language is when you see the word engineer.
Yes. You start seeing engineer, for me, at least for me, when I start saying engineer, that's you start getting into bigger problems. Most stuff in the house can be fixed. It's just a matter of telling your buyer how it can be fixed. And that's what we want to do. You want to say that, this is what you have wrong with your house. Your foundation's cracking. It's cracking because you have water draining to it. Fix that water draining to it. Nothing else is structural. There's nothing else broken on the house. You just fix that and you're fine.
What is your thought about pools?
I like having swimming pools.
fill them up and grow a garden.
Well, that kind of leads to kind of my question. And I guess this could be like the final big point if we're running out of time or whatever. But every buyer is hoping for the best,
Yes.
right? And they want the home to be in great shape for the most part, okay? And they're hoping to not have to spend money. So the immediate thing when they find out anything is to, number one, assume the worst and say the seller's got to fix it, okay? Almost always. So as a buyer's agent, especially in a market like this that's been a seller's market for years, basically, getting them to understand, number one, what is serious and what is not, right? And the other day, literally 3 days ago, we walked into a house with a buyer, and it was literally just a green pool. Just a green pool, right? Yes, off the surface, that does not look pretty. But there's nothing to say that, the motor's bad, that my client looked at it and immediately said, man, that's going to be like $15,000 to fix instantly, and it's like, that's where their minds go, right? So how can you equip us, and what is your tip? Because number one, when we first start showing homes, that's when we start laying in the foundation of expectations, right? Right up until when you come over. And that's one of the main things I love about you is that you'll take the time to answer those questions. I understand your fear, but the reality is, unless this, and this happens, it's probably just going to be this, and this is how we're going to handle it. So I guess, that's a loaded question. So I guess take over from there.
So that is what you want to explain to your buyer when you get the inspection on it. You want to explain to them that it looks so bad that you want to present it to the seller. Sorry for listening, but you want to send it to the seller saying, this thing's horrible. The sky's falling. It's going to cost tons of money to fix that. And, we want money for that because you want to get the house for the best price for your client. Reality is you come back and you like the green pool. Depends on the material the pool is made out of, but you're going to do a 3% acid wash on it. Clean the material off. You're basically going to scrub the pool. You're going to drain it because the water's green. You're going to drain the water out of the pool. Do an acid wash. The acid's going to go through and clean out the system when you backwash it. Depends on the filter, how you're going to clean the filter. It's cartridge. You may have to replace the cartridge. There's backwash the sand. Same thing with the diatomaceous earth filters. The equipment themselves. So you want to look at the equipment. Is the equipment sunburned to the point that it needs to be replaced? or does it look fine? The motor, when the motor runs, if it's really loud sounding motor, usually means the windings are bad on it. If it has a nice calm hum to it, the motor's good. All the equipment and stuff, if everything looks fine on it, it's just they're probably not running it because they don't have the money to spend to run it, or nobody's using it, so they just stop using it. So most of the time, it's just servicing, and it's usually servicing like that, $300.
AC units, pools. What are the other things that they always go for? Oh my gosh, it's going to be ridiculous. And usually it's a service or a fix. And a lot of times, even their worst case scenario of, oh, this is going to be 15 grand. It's like, are we having to redo the whole pool? Like everything? Because that's a lot of money. That's not even you could replace the motor and have it acid washed for way less than that, So getting their expectations within even remote reasons up front, and it is just, I don't know, it's just really, really, really tough. I guess I'm trying to get back to my question, because how do we help with that? Because, with the inspections, I always tell people to call you to put it in perspective. Help put it in perspective. You're going to get this report. It's going to freak the crap out of you, but that's normal. Call Steve. He'll tell you. He'll walk you through it. But even up front, people will assume the worst and not even give it the chance up front a lot of the time. You know what I mean? And that's what stinks when you can't even get to that point. Like, I've had one person want to cancel over windows, right? And my personal opinion about the seals and windows is,
it happens.
If you're gonna replace windows, get new windows and get a professional company to do it. That way you're gonna get the tax benefits and you're gonna get the full package. To replace one or two windows is pointless, and it's a lot of money that really doesn't get that benefit from it. Take that and fix something else that you might actually get a benefit. You might have a drippy sink over here that actually should be fixed. It's those things. What are your thoughts on those issues? Like, it's
This
not
versus
right
this.
versus has to be fixed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Here in Arizona.
So windows are your biggest energy loss next to your attic. So it doesn't, with the seals on them, it's going to keep the windows clear. Sound, you double pane windows for sound, and energy efficient. They're obviously going to be a lot cooler, but there's not that much. Windows only rated like 0.9 to 1.2 R value on the window, so it's really not that much. But in a room with a single pane window, it can get very hot that way. So if you're talking about a low E window who is going to reflect the radiant heat back out and keep the rooms cooler, and a newer vinyl window, and they start to have seal movement on it and stuff, generally you're just replacing the glass. And low E windows glasses, they're not that bad. That you can replace a double pane window, take it out of the frame with the plastic clips around and stuff, take them out of the frame, and you could be replacing the window for $100 generally. It just depends on how big the window is. So, but most buyers are kind of like, they can panic over a lot of stuff. But once you start putting actual dollar amounts into things, and you can say, okay, let's have a window guy come out and see how much it's going to cost to replace windows in the house. A lot of times it'll just cost for what window you have in there now. So if you don't have a low E window, he'll come back and he'll say, yeah, it's $150 for that window. People look at it and say, oh, it's only $150. It takes that shock away from stuff. You put a dollar amount with it. There's a lot of people, they look at things like you said with swimming pools, it's $15,000. And in reality, most of the time you can redo a whole pool for $3,000 to $5,000. Depends on the material you're going to use. And that's, I'll talk about resurfacing, new pump, new filter, new plumbing lines on the exterior, visible above the front.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you actually have an inspection, right? I strongly recommend my clients show up. If not for not necessarily for the whole thing, but definitely so you can do a walkthrough with them.
Right.
Is that pretty standard what you suggest?
Yeah, the only time I ever have any problems with somebody on an inspection report is when they don't come to the inspection, because they'll read the report and they'll get scared over something they see in it. And that's because they didn't get an explanation. They didn't get to walk through the house with you and see things. And that's basically what I do is I'll walk through each room with them, go around the exterior, come into the garage, do the garage area, and walk through the house with them and show them things and how simple they are to fix. If they have an issue with something like a door sticking, for instance, how easy it is to fix something like that and what caused it. And that's the biggest thing people want to know is what caused the door to do this, to stick. What was the biggest issue? And that's my thing too. If it's just a sticky door, it's a sticky door that wasn't hung right, or because of swell, anything like that. Or is there settling in the house? What caused it?
I know that whenever I have an inspection, I'll ask Steve how long do you expect it to be, and then I'll tell my client, let's meet there at about the last half hour, because whenever I've watched it happen with you and with other inspectors, where if the client shows up, it can double the time of your inspection if they try to hang out with you. And I always tell them that they don't have the right to go to it's the inspector that's licensed. It's the inspector that has all of the right kinds of coverage to be doing this. We're not covered to hang out with you because we're not part of your team. So we show up at the end, and then that gives you a chance to walk them around. And usually what he does is, he walks you around. He'll share what he's concerned about, especially those safety issues.
I'll make sure I ask them if they have any questions before I leave each area too. And that way they get to address their concerns with it.
Well, and I even appreciate so much, even after the inspection and after, kind of walking them through, that you still make yourself available. Like when we have some of the repairs done and they're still concerned about this or that or the other, and a lot of times if it's something that I don't understand, I love being able to call you and say, can you please help me with this? But back to the pool thing, it just seems like, number one, if the seller is at a place where the pool looks like that, then something's kind of going on. But then what I love, like you said, Josh, and then Steve too, that part of my education is let's find out what's going on here, because if we have sound equipment and that's what the inspection is going to tell us and everything, then we know that for the most part, this is something that's probably not going to be very costly, but again, because I know I'm constantly putting out fires because they take it over here and it's like, no, let's pull it back in, because actually if you look at that, that's only a $5 fix, but let's look at this because this looks like it might be a little bit more. And so can we negotiate here too? So I love that it's my job to be as educated as I can. I am not the expert, but if I don't know, I'm going to find out. And I'm going to have them go to the person who does know and has,
Yeah.
Steve, we asked you a lot of questions.
Yeah. This was great.
Did you cover everything you were going to present to us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you get through the second page or anything?
Let's see.
When do you
guys
want to
asked me
come
about
again?
Binzer.
Oh, see, no, we haven't even gotten there, no.
Okay. Is there any, Binzer's kind of I don't want to step on your guys' toes and stuff like that. But.
Expectations and seriousness, and you talked about what's important to the buyers. What one buyer is willing to handle, other buyers may not.
Right.
What one seller is willing to fix, the other sellers may not. So we agents kind of have to pick and choose and do our best on that one, but utilizing your information, ideally.
We would hope that all of our efforts prior to the Binzer cleared up everything and we don't have anything to complain about.
Yeah. I do have one question.
Yes.
Why is it that home inspectors and pest people have to be done separately? Why is a termite not a home inspection thing?
Well, it's a home inspector can be a licensed termite inspector. It can, but there's also a conflict of interest in those things because the home inspector or the termite guy can sell you something. Home inspectors can't.
Oh.
So that becomes the lawsuit thing. Is that the home inspector can get sued for something like that. So they tell you in the licensing board that you can do it, but they highly recommend you don't.
Okay.
So and that's why I don't do it. And I just stay away from it because it's a different business. But I can go through and I can see if you have termites, you have termite damage, anything like that. If you don't get a termite inspection, if I see termites, I'm going to tell you that I see termites. Just recommend that you get a termite inspection done.
Now, not that this is necessarily your responsibility or anything, but when we do, and when we, after the inspection and we've come to an agreed upon Binzer, and so the seller's doing the repairs and stuff, is it your recommendation that as much as possible, we have the invoice of, from the repair person? So we actually have the name of the end contact person as well as what stuff was done. Do they necessarily have to include the cost? We just need to know that this is a reputable person. We have contact information and the work that was done, right?
Yeah, and the materials that are used. And I always would like to know it, because you can tell by what materials they use by the cost and the company size too.
Oh,
So I
okay.
mean, they're using Parker and Sons. You know they're going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the work's going to be done better, but they're going to be really expensive because they advertise a lot. They have to pay for that.
All right.
So it doesn't really. You got a handyman service, and I know handyman's been doing it for a long time, and they're great at it. They do quality work. The same thing, some don't. But the big thing you'd want to do is you want to have that piece of paper that says, replace the valve that's leaking underneath the sink. You have a globe valve and you replaced it with a corner turn ball valve, and you want to have that written down. That
Okay.
It's a compression quarter turn ball valve was replaced. The cost really doesn't matter.
Okay.
On something like that. But you have description of what items were replaced, and if you have things, especially like if you have like a roof, air conditioning, you want to know if there's any guarantee, warranty, or anything like that with it too. Most companies, roof repairs now, they're going to give you 30 days. You can get companies that will give you a year, but most of them are just 30 days. And odds are it's not going to rain in 30 days. So,
Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting that from the time of the inspection to the actual date of closing, especially during the summer with all of our storms, because I had a situation where the roof was okay when it was inspected, but by the time it closed, we'd had a massive storm that totally ripped up that roof. And that was just an additional expense. But the owner was saying, well, why do I have to do that? Because it's not in the same condition it was.
Right.
And that's the key thing. And I'm so sorry, but it's not in the same condition.
Mother
And so we
Nature
have,
sucks sometimes.
yeah, we have to take care of it.
Yeah.
and with that said too, I've done an inspection. I did an inspection a while ago that had a package unit mounted on the roof, air conditioning unit, heat pump on the roof, and did the inspection on it. I take pictures. I take at least 200 pictures per inspection.
Yeah, I
And
know.
you may only have like 20 or 30 in your report, but I take pictures because past experience tells me that you put a brand new, a seller would put a brand new $7,000 air conditioner on their roof.
Mhm.
They'll take that with them, and they'll put an older one on
True.
top there.
We've had to do that with the appliances, is actually have pictures, but we put down where we have to describe what it is, because the owners, and we've had some
Yeah.
that
Actually, I had somebody take an AC unit.
Mhm.
Well, the
Wow.
buyer had a problem like a year or two later, and they called me up and said that my description, I said the air conditioning was fine and what age it was and year it was, and they said it's a totally different unit. They said I screwed up, I messed up on it and stuff like that. And
There's my picture.
I asked them, what the unit was, and then I turned around and I sent them the pictures of from distance what the roof looks, so you can see all the neighbors' houses, you can see everything with it, and then a close up of the air conditioning unit. And they turned around and had the seller replace their air
That's not
conditioning.
easy.
Because
No, you have to have a
Mhm.
truck and
Darwin,
people, and
You better
that's
stop associating with that kind of a
wow. Nice. Well, unless you had anything else, if you don't mind, share people how they can get a hold of you, reach out if they want to hire you, anything like that, please.
Again, my name's Steve Callahan with Kansas State Property Inspections. You can give me a call at 480-699-1651, and that's my office. My wife Ann answers the phone, so you'll talk to her. She's been doing this for at least 14 years too herself, so
Wonderful.
in Arizona, so she knows how to answer a lot of your questions and talk to your clients and stuff like that. You can also go to our website, which is Canyon State Inspections. We take out the property part just because it's so long. With Canyon State Inspections, Canyon State Inspections.com, and you can look at anything that's on there. We have videos, we have all kinds of information for your buyers and stuff, even your sellers. Okay.
And you are located in the East Valley, but you are willing to go valley-wide. So
Yes, I do travel
appreciate
throughout the whole valley, and I've done it for a while. So, yeah. Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.